Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It's May 3rd. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and really nice downtrend early. Um, I had a lot of questions, people trying to get long in here. Look how bearish that is, and it wasn't hard to find that trend line. But if you just drew this first one up here as well, you should have been aware that something else was coming over here. Um, I mean, that's just too steep. You're not going to maintain that angle. This whole thing is really too steep, but it's a big sell-off. And once you had your break, you moved to a new low, and then we reversed. You got a nice trend working up here. We had a break here. We never really attempted to. It took a long time before we attempted to even make a retest of that. So um, maybe this is the channel here, and this is a break, and we did get a new high. But this trend line's holding all the way up, so um, as long as it keeps going like that, I'd still be looking for some opportunities to enter there. But let's back out, talk about, I mean, really from the open on, this is a range day. We're just going sideways here. You can see that. From the 8:30 open, we opened around, we really opened on this bar. Well, I don't know what's wrong with my thing here. I can't get it to opened around 2060, and look where we closed. We closed 2058 or so, 2057. Anyway, you can see that there. Really it's a flat day, but you can't ignore this on the overnight. When we opened, it continued lower. But this wasn't really hard to find this trend line off those first few swings up there. And somebody asked me this question, how do you know whether to use the closes or not? It's really difficult to answer, and I'm not trying to avoid your question, but drawing these trend lines is a skill, and you'll hear people say you can't you couldn't find this trend line. You could find this trend line after 3:30 a.m. my time. I'm still in bed sleeping, but when I came, I could draw that instantly and find this trend line. And you drag it down, and it fits really well here. The midline fits really well here after you get some more price action. So you can do this. It's a skill, just like the whole everything else we do. It takes a while to learn it. But anyway, I don't want to get off on that sidetrack. But yeah, it's hard to answer. You draw it where it fits the best, and when you draw it here, once you got this price action and drug it down, if it doesn't fit right, then maybe it's a little steeper or a little higher or a little flatter angle or whatever. But you never go inside those closes. It's generally going almost. Actually, I'll take that back, because occasionally in the overnight, prices will close through a trend line and really not affect the chain. They don't really consider it as break, because you get these, just like here, you had an overshoot, but it's in the overnight, and there's the volume's thin, and they can easily move it and stuff like that. So sometimes you can ignore those little overshoots and undershoots and breaks and things like that. And again, it's when you ignore them, I don't know. You just have to kind of play it by ear and see what happens. But let's back out here and talk about the trades. A lot of times I forget to make it bigger where it's easier to see. And somebody else suggested I start using dots to make it a little cleaner, and I may try that. Put a dot above each trade like so, a red one if it's short and a blue one if it's long. But we'll look into that. I didn't do it today, but we'll look into maybe doing that. Maybe it will make it cleaner. But let's notice this first trade. All right, we've had a big move down. We had a break, a new low. So we're probably going to correct and go back to the main trend line. And that's the part that people missed here. They thought this trend was over. When you get a trend this strong, it's this far down, you're going to retest that low at a minimum, even if you don't go lower. But by the time we got there, you could see we'd been going sideways. And so, but still, you draw your trend line working back up. And I just use those first two swings there, and notice how everything's kind of fitting in there and closing in there. Maybe a little bit flatter than that, like so. And you got a second entry short there. And I guarantee you, actually, somebody else asked me about this short too. They got tricked here. Um, and what is the only thing that would tell you not to go short there? You got a trend line working back up, and that's the first break. You're going to get a retest. And look what happens after you get the retest. You go short. You go short one tick below that little bitty tiny bar. It's a failed break above all those highs right across there. And that's a perfect setup. Um, and on a bigger picture, it's it's a failed break low, higher above that range. Um, it's the first break, move to a new high, and you got a range kind of going across here. You can see it pretty obvious. And so you're probably headed down to this side of the range. And that's kind of what happens. It actually ends up, I don't really have that right across those closes. And look, it bounces right off those previous closes. And where does it go? It goes back up to the highs. But I would have had this up here at that point. I would have moved it up after these closes. And we didn't quite get there. But the reason I like this one is because you pull back first entry, pull back second entry, and it's close enough to the high. It's a failed second entry long. I would say here, to get in this one, you need to make sure that you have enough room to scalp out before you get to these lows. So you'd have to use a limit order here. A stop would not work there. Even though it worked, that's the only way I would enter that would be with a limit order. So even though there's a trap there. And you get a failed break lower, but don't be going long in this big downtrend with this trend line still here. I don't think it would have even worked. You might have got out of that. I'm getting frustrated with this. I've been having some problems with my chart all morning. I don't know if I need to restart my software or something, but I've been having some problems all. Anyway, I'm not even going to count it. I'm not even going to figure it out. It's taking too much time. But high that bar, you would have entered at 2060, and so you'd had to have 2061 and a quarter. So you would have got out of that by the skin of your teeth if you went long there. But I wouldn't go long there. Skip that because this is a big downtrend. And we're going sideways. And notice we just keep going sideways, keep going sideways. And I drew this one green. And guess what? We had a failed second entry long. We went higher here, but look how we're right into that support. But it did break a little lower here, but it didn't really get below those last lows across there. And you don't have a whole lot of room, but old Mack had a loss right there. Got stopped out by one tick, only to watch it turn back down. But it's a real small bar, 3 or 4 ticks, so it got stopped out by one tick, and you just re-enter right there, and you make it right back. So it was no big deal. But I'm betting a bunch of you probably, actually, I'm betting most of you got stopped out going long here. But that's a pretty nice setup. The only thing that I should have paid attention to is look at that support right there. There's not enough room to scalp out. So listen to old Mike when he tells you, make sure you, especially when you've been going sideways, make sure you got enough room to scalp out, because if you don't, you'll get a one tick loser like I did and you lose a point there and then have to jump back in. But guess what? You get an easy runner here. Easy runner. If you just moved your stop on each bar down until you went higher right there, you make it all back plus 3 or 4 more points, and you're probably done for the day. So, but yeah, I got burned there, and I'm guessing maybe some of y'all did too. I don't know, but I should have known better, and so slap me on the hand. But nice move down there, and watch what happens. You make a new low, pulling back, you get a first entry long, you pull back, you get a second, that's a second entry long. It's a double test of that support right across there. It's a big bearish reversal bar. I mean, that's the trade you're looking for. Another quick, easy move. Of course, it comes back and gets the runners, but you get a little breakout pullback short again right off the trend line. And this is a double top, so that's really, you can count that as a failed second entry long. And this is really another double top, so I even treated that one like a failed second entry long. We're really humming down here, and I didn't show it, but you're looking for a measured move here. We don't quite get it today. You really should probably measure from there. But you can see, I measure from right there. And we don't quite get there today. You see, we missed it by 43 to, we missed it by quite a few points there. So, but you know you're going to stay inside the channel most likely. You're probably not going to overshoot it enough to get that. So, but just something to be thinking about for your target. And that's the reason I like these little, all these little shorts down through here. And you got a little range going here too. You can see that. That's another thing about that. You didn't really have much room, but we're really humming down, and that's a trap. And then it pulls back. That's your little breakout pullback short. And you got enough room to scalp out of this one if you just go short right there. And then you get two legs back, and notice your little trend line working up there. You get a break, move to a new high, secondary. That's a repeat pattern from the one back here. Very similar. That's another nice short. And then you get a first entry long, pull back. You get a second entry. You actually make a new swing high here, so you count over. First entry, pull back. Second entry, it fails. And look at that bearish bar that confirms that trend line. Go short right there. And you're probably headed to the other side. And guess what? That's where it goes. It actually pushes down, comes back. Notice your trend line coming up. You get a close outside, push to a new high. There's your short. You got three of them in a row there, just alike. And it actually pulls back, gives you a double top, and gives you another one, another second entry short, counting off that high. You're heading down. First entry, pull back. Second entry, it fails. Look how bearish that bar is right off the trend line. If you had time, get short right there. You may have missed that one. And it drops straight down to the other side. And then, of course, you finally get your break here. Draw your little shorter term trend line because you'll probably need it. And you get a break. You never get a new high here, though. It just keeps working lower. And you're working down. You do get a break of that and a move down. But it just pushes on through the trend line. It kind of starts going sideways. You might have got tripped up right there. I'm guessing some people did. If you did, you know, there's just not much you can say about that when you're kind of looking for a new high here. And it looks like this is probably the trend line. So when it comes down there, you're looking for a move to a new high. It just turns out to be a long trap. So if you got trapped there, nothing you can do. There's a little trap to the short side here. And I would have pulled this down a measured move just to be safe. And you wouldn't really know until it confirmed it on up through here. But now you've got your break and two legs down, and you get a little trap there. It actually goes short and then turns and goes out the upside. You probably want to wait on that bar, wait on a break of it, and drop a limit order back there. It would have pulled back and filled you. Nice easy move. And guess what? If you caught that one, you'd had runners. And then it pulls back again here. That's your failed second entry short. This is your real reversal pattern. Notice that your new low there. You actually can treat this as a failed second entry low, but that's a double bottom, so you can treat that as one. And that's the only reason I like that one. It's not a bad signal bar, but it's not a great signal bar. But we're not quite back to the trend line. But I still like that one. And I felt we'd at least get a measured move. like this right here to the upside. But you can see this thing kept going. And it was tempting to enter here. If that would have broke lower, if this bar would have broke lower than that bar, I would have said have at it there, but it didn't. It didn't even quite get back to the trend line. So the next time it got back was here. And that's a nice bullish bar. I would have let this break higher and maybe dropped a limit order or a tick or two. If you tried to get much too conservative with it, you would have missed it. And I wouldn't have taken another one when it didn't. Notice how many times it tried to go short here. It just kept trying, and it tried again, but that's more of a neutral bar. And the fact that we're starting to get further away from that midline, I wouldn't have taken another one. And then boom, boom. And there's actually a failed second entry long right there, but it wasn't back to that trend line. It's close. It probably should be, I probably should make that one green. I will, because it did go higher and then turn down. So I guarantee you there were some trapped traders right there. But that late in the day, I'm not going to risk it. And you had a first entry right there. But notice how you're kind of going sideways. You don't want to go long here yet because you still got this going down. And there's actually a nice second entry short. I should have circled that one too. That's a nice setup, but you don't have a break of it though, really. I still like that one just because it's you're looking for a new low here. But that's a good reason to skip it right there, just because and this is how you know if you got it right or not. It should fit really nicely on the other side. And you can see that we had a little overshoot, so that's a good reason to maybe go ahead and take that one. Notice how we overshot it there. So a lot of times on the overshoot, you don't get a retest of a new high. And it tried here before it just kept going lower. But this one probably should be green. I'm going to change it to green. And that was the last trade I would. You did have two legs down. You made a new low, but you don't have a very bullish bar here. Actually, it didn't quite make a new low. There's a double bottom too, so I wouldn't have taken that one, especially right into the 2 o'clock hour. But yeah, it was a really nice trading day, and really should have been done early. I was done early and gone. I was a little slow answering a few emails today because I wasn't here. I was out enjoying. It didn't rain for the first time in forever here, so I got done early and I left the office, and so I'm back doing this late. So if you're looking for it, that's the reason it's late today. I've been on the golf course all day. So, but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Uh, we'll be back again to do it tomorrow. Hope you had a good trading day. And but I'm out of here for today. This is Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.